Hello everybody, what's going on? Mr. Fearless here. Today's video is going to cover a very controversial topic, and in part this is my opinion, but my opinion here, I've done my research, is backed up by statistics. So what I'm going to be talking about today is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. I think it was yesterday was Tom Brady's 41st birthday, or 2 days ago, but I do not believe Tom Brady is the GOAT. I think Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, most likely. The only person that I would argue is better than Brady is Aaron Rodgers, but neither have finished their career yet, so that's not something I'm really comfortable arguing. But the man I'm going to say is the greatest of all time is Jerry Rice. Now, I've been looking at stats for the past probably hour and a half, maybe just an hour, but I found all the records that each of these guys hold. Now, the differentials between what Jerry Rice holds, for example, Jerry Rice has the most receiving yards in a career at 22,895. Second place is 15,934, which is Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens is one of the best wide receivers in NFL history. Now, I don't care about his personality. He was a dick. Was he a good receiver? Yes, and that's what it boils down to. But just the differential, 22,000, well, it's basically a 23,000 to 16,000 yard differential. Now, you think that an average, if you're going to talk about like a great season receiving, is maybe 1,500 yards. So for Terrell Owens to catch up to Jerry Rice, he would have had to play on average, with having like these great 1,500 yard seasons, he would have had to play like another 5-6 years maybe. I didn't do my exact math on that, but it's at least 5 years, probably more, to catch up to Jerry Rice in career receiving yards. And that's playing at peak performance, not at the end of his career adding 5 mediocre 800-yard receiving years. But and we all know that's what T.O. ended up doing, because T.O. could not retire. He needed to be the face of everything. Just like with the whole Hall of Fame thing, he's not going to Canton, and because he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's besides the point. So basically my argument here is that just career stats and just records in general, Jerry Rice holds so many records receiving. And as a receiver, you're not guaranteed to touch the ball every play. You have to, run your route, get open, and then catch the ball, run after you make the catch, and not fumble, get to the end zone, score touchdowns. Whereas as a quarterback, quarterback is probably the toughest position on the field, but you are touching the ball every play. It's easier to get yards as long, if you have the right, if you can think properly think like a quarterback. It's one of the toughest positions in all of sports, but with as good as you're supposed to be the greatest of all time, just comparing the records here, which I'll go through in a minute, I just don't see how Tom Brady is said to be better than everyone else to ever play the game, and especially Jerry Rice. Now, I'm arguing that Jerry Rice is the GOAT, is the best player of all time, compared to Tom Brady. Am I saying Tom Brady's a horrible player? No. I'm a Seahawks fan. I don't like Tom Brady. Am I saying Brady's a horrible player? No, I'm not. I think Tom Brady, even though I hate to say it, is one of the, if not the best quarterback of all time. But I'm just going to go through the list here. Jerry Rice has the record for touchdowns in a career with 208. Second place is Emmitt Smith with 175. Now, Emmitt Smith is regarded as one of the, if not the best running back of all time, who ran behind that Dallas Cowboys offensive line back then, which was probably the best offensive line of all time in NFL history. Now, Jerry Rice as a receiver, who was playing against people like Deion Sanders and cornerbacks from that day and age. Ronnie Lott was on his team, so he wasn't playing against him. But people like that, when you could take hits like the ones Ronnie Lott delivered, and it was legal. And Jerry Rice still has that many more career just touchdowns in general than Emmitt Smith, as far as rushing and receiving. Passing's not included here, just because obviously those guys are going to throw 50 touchdowns in a year. Jerry has the most catches in a career with 1,549. Second place is a tight end, Tony G, with 1,242. Tony Gonzalez, probably the best tight end to ever play the game. Now, I say that mostly because he's managed to stay healthy. If Gronk had managed to stay healthy, Gronk could have been one of the best receivers of all time, not just tight ends. But Gronk has these injury issues that he just can't seem to throw away. I don't like the Patriots, but I'm going to be real here. The stats and performance on the field show this stuff. Jerry has the most seasons with 50-plus catches. He had 17 seasons where he had 50-plus catches. That's not easy to do. Second place, again, Tony Gonzalez with 15. Now, that may only be a number differential of 2, but that is 16 games in a season. So the difference is 2, but it's 16 games. Tony Gonzalez had 32 games that he couldn't reel on 50-plus catches. Now, that may have just been based on the career that they had, career time span. I'm almost certain Gonzalez played less years, but still, Jerry Rice, it's not the fact that he played so much longer than everyone else, and that's why he has these records, because there's people who have played just as long as Jerry and don't have these records. It's because Jerry was able to play at this top-tier level for so long, his entire career. Even when he went to Oakland, Jerry was still one of the best receivers in the NFL statistic-wise. Now, performance-wise, did it look like it? No, he didn't look like the Jerry of old. But that's because he set the standard so high for himself that even when he goes from here to here, it looks like the biggest difference in the world because it's Jerry Rice, the greatest receiver of all time. That's not even an argument in my opinion. People say Randy Moss, but you see Randy Moss behind Jerry Rice in almost every single one of these statistics. So, next record that he has, consecutive games with a catch. 274 consecutive games, Jerry Rice caught a pass. Do you know how difficult that is? I can tell you, every team, all 274 games, had their best corner, their number one corner, shadowing Jerry Rice around the field. Jerry Rice, he was a game changer. Don't get me wrong, Tom Brady's obviously a game changer, but you had the game plan around both of these guys. Now, at the quarterback position, you can't take your number one player and just shadow them around the quarterback because they have 5 different receivers on any play that they can try and hit. You can take your number one corner and try and shut down a wide receiver. But no one managed to do that for 274 games. There's 16 games in a regular season. Guys, do you realize how long of a time frame that is that he had a game, that he didn't have a game where he didn't get a catch? I don't know if I said that right whatsoever, but you know what I mean. He had a catch in 274 straight games. Second place, again, Tony Gonzalez, 195. Now, does that seem like a huge difference when you compare consecutive games with a catch to his career yards? No, but yards in games is a completely different thing. That's 80 games. 80 games that Jerry Gonzalez, meet the greatest player of all time, ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Gonzalez. That Jerry Rice had a catch in every game that Tony Gonzalez couldn't get to. And a tight end's supposed to be your security blanket, per se. So he's supposed to be the one that the quarterback can check down to and usually get a catch almost every game. Next, this is a record that Jerry didn't have, but he's in second place. So he's not at the top, but he's like right underneath the top, and second place in seasons leading in total yards gained. So he had six seasons where he led the league in receiving yards gained. Now, first place is Don Hudson with 7, which is 1 season, 16 games. Don Hudson played in the 40s. So I don't think he's really someone that you're going to put in the GOAT argument. If you were going to talk about the best receiver of the 40s, then actually I've never actually watched him or heard of him before today, but just looking at some of the records that he holds for just performances and seasons and stuff like that, I would say Don Hudson was probably a terrific receiver. Next, receiving yards in a career. I already went over this one. So 22,895. T.O.'s 15,934. It's not even a competition. No one's going to break that record. No one is going to break that record for a long time. It's already stood for a long time. Antonio Brown is easily the best receiver in the NFL today. He's nowhere close. He's not going to get anywhere close. It's just... Yes, Jerry did... I know I've already said this, but it's the thing that people say is, well, Jerry played so many more seasons than everyone else. Yes, he played so many more seasons, but each season he played at such a high level. It wasn't just he was out there playing like T.O. and Ocho Cinco at the end of their careers. He was out there performing, and he was a threat to the defense every play. The next one, he 1,000 yards or more seasons. He had 14 seasons where he had 1,000 or more yards. Second place is 10 by Randy Moss. Randy Moss, probably second, third, maybe fourth greatest receiver of all time. Going into the Hall of Fame this year. 4 seasons, a differential, where Jerry had 1,000 yards and Randy didn't. Now, of course, as I said, that could just be because of the number of seasons Jerry played versus Randy, but still, it's going back to what I just said. He played at a peak performance for so long. That's 1,000 yards is like the benchmark for a good season receiving. 14 seasons in a row. Say he came into the NFL at 20. Even if he came into the NFL at 20, which was really young for back then, like, definitely, I don't know how old he was exactly, but 14 seasons of 1,000 or more yards, and that would be, if they were consecutive, he would have had 1,000 yards receiving or more until he was 34. Now, football-wise, 30 is pretty old. In Madden, which is the worst simulation of football I've ever seen, they start regressing at 28. They really stop progressing at 26. So you think about a guy that comes into the league at 24, and you're going to say that they've reached their peak performance by like 26. They've been in the league for 2 years. Now, Jerry Rice, for 14 seasons, reeled in 1,000 or more yards. He had 76 games with 100 or more yards in his career. That's 7,600 yards alone. Just if he hit 100 yards, exactly 100 yards in all 76 games, that's 7,600 of his 22,895 receiving yards. Second place, 64 by Randy Moss. Now that isn't the biggest difference ever because it is only 12 games, but that's almost the whole season where Jerry had 100 or more yards in games than Moss did. Next one. Jerry has 197 career receiving touchdowns. Next is Randy Moss with 156. Receiving touchdowns isn't something you get a lot of in a season. So that's almost probably about 5 to 6 seasons worth of touchdowns that Jerry has over Moss. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but it's the thing that people always tell me when I'm trying to argue that Jerry's a better player than Brady. And because Jerry has these records, he holds these records by just so many, whatever the stat is, he holds it by so much. Like, 197 and 156 may not seem like a lot, but in football terms, for receiving touchdowns, that's a lot. 10 touchdowns in a season receiving is quite a bit. And Jerry also holds the record for touchdowns in a game. He caught 5 touchdowns in a game. He is tied with Kellen Winslow and Bob Shaw for that one. Kellen Winslow was a great tight end. Never actually heard of Bob Shaw. But obviously, if he managed to reel in 5 touchdowns in a game, he was probably a pretty good player. Now, that doesn't always hold true, as the Browns running back from like 10, 12 years ago had that one career day and never did anything else with his career. Peyton Hillis had a career year and then he disappeared off the face of the map. So it's not always true, but Jerry Rice played at this level. I mean, I got one more record to go. That's just the 11 records that I found that he's right there up at the top, or the one where he's right below him. And this last one is yards from scrimmage in a career with 23,540. Now, of course, again, this one doesn't include passing, because passing yards versus receiving and rushing yards is just a completely different category. Second place was Emmitt Smith with 21,579 by the looks of my handwriting. Now, I know the 21,000 is the right part, and that's the part that really matters. That's a difference of almost exactly 2,000 yards. A running back getting 2,000 yards in a season, that's a pretty damn good season. So, Jerry Rice has almost season and a half's worth of yards in a career more than Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith, probably statistic-wise, the greatest running back in NFL history. Now, I'm not saying that skill-wise he was, because he was running behind that Dallas offensive line. So now, don't think I just got Jerry's records and I'm just trying to point out all the positives about him. Not going to mention anything about Tom. Tom Brady, he has 5 records that I could come up with that weren't just like ESPN's LeBron records. When it's a Friday night on January 17th and it's not below 50 degrees, these are like actual records. So, one, Brady has career passer rating. He doesn't have it, but he's third with a 96.6 career passer rating. Now, first place for career passer rating is Aaron Rodgers with a 104.9. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but through a career, with as many yards as Brady's, or as many passes as Brady's thrown, to get from a 96.6 to a 104.9, that would be pretty damn difficult at this point in his career. It's like the best comparison I can come up with here, just like to try and help people understand, is when you're playing, say, Battlefield, Call of Duty, a shooter game like that, and you have your kill-death ratio. When you first start out, if your first game you've ever played, you end up with a 0.5 KD. It's really easy to change that. Your career KD would be a 0.5, but you get the rest of the games you ever play, you have over a 1.0 KD. That 0.5 isn't going to matter. But Brady's been in the NFL and thrown so many passes over so many seasons that it's like having played 3,000 Call of Duty games and trying to change your 1.29 KD and get it up to a 2.5. It's not going to be easy. So, a roughly, like an 8-point difference in passer rating is quite a bit when it comes to terms of a career passer rating. Now he is still third. Steve Young was second. He was somewhere in the middle between the two. Actually, he was a 96.9, I believe. But it's just, I'm not saying that he's not good, but you look at the records that Jerry holds and just the differential, and Brady doesn't even have first place on this one, never mind have this huge lead. Now, Brady is also third for season passer rating with a 117.2. First place, again, Aaron Rodgers with 122.5. Now, that one's not as big of a deal because that's one season. So, changing your passer rating during one single season is obviously a lot easier than in the career. Another touchdown interception ratio in a season. Brady holds this record with a 14-1 touchdown interception ratio. He had 28 touchdowns, 2 picks that season. Obviously, throwing that many touchdowns with only 2 interceptions is just nothing short of amazing. It's almost a perfect season. That was obviously one of his best seasons. Again, in that same season, he got the record for yards to interception ratio with 1,770 to 1 ratio of yards to interception. So obviously he had 2 interceptions that season, so just multiply the 1777 by 2 and you get his yards for the season. Last record that he holds is consecutive passing touchdown games. He has 52 games where he's thrown a passing touchdown. Now, if I compare that to the consecutive games where Jerry Rice scored a touchdown, Jerry scored a touchdown in 13 consecutive games. As a wide receiver, that's a lot harder than, say, passing for a touchdown. Jerry Rice is 1 target. Brady has 5 people on any given play to throw the ball to. And he's also throwing the ball a lot more than a player's catching the ball. So that difference is hard to compare, but if you see the point I'm trying to make here, yes, Brady holds it. Does he hold it by a lot? No, he doesn't. There's a lot of quarterbacks who have done that very same thing, but just 1 or 2 games less than Brady. Now, stuff that he's not leading in, and he's not even in the top 5 for some of this stuff. Passes completed in a career, completions in a season, completions in a game, career completion percentage in a season. This is all stuff that he hasn't even touched really near the top of the list. Completion percentage in a game, yards in a career, he has 66,159. Peyton has 71,940. Now, that's 5,000 yards. 5,000 yards is an excellent, terrific passing season. So Brady has an excellent season this year. Could he break the record? Yes. Do I think Brady will have a 5,000 yard season? No. Just look at the offensive line. They don't have a great one. Do they have good? They have. If this was like 2 years ago and all the receivers they had lived up to their potential coming out of college, Cordero Patterson, the Patriots would have one of the best receiving corps in the NFL. They have Kenny Britt, and they have Cordero Patterson. They have Edelman. Well, after 4 games, they'll have Edelman. They got Gronk, obviously. They got Sony at running back. Obviously, Brady at quarterback. Their defense isn't great. They have 2 McCourties on their defense, which is just kind of a not so good if you ask me. Some people think Devin McCourty is a great safety. I don't see that. Safety is supposed to be able to make a tackle if he's the last line of defense, and McCourty isn't an excellent tackler. So back to the real topic here. Brady also isn't near the top for yards in a season or a game. Well, he's near the top for yards in a season, but he doesn't hold it. Passing touchdowns in a career, touchdown interception differential in a season. That's different than the touchdown interception ratio. So the touchdown to interception ratio is he had 28 touchdowns, 2 picks. So it's a 14-1 ratio, but the passing touchdown to interception differential is, so his differential for that season would have been 26, a plus 26, because he had 26 more passing touchdowns. Peyton had a season with like 36 more touchdowns than interceptions, so that's quite a bit for one season. And also passing touchdowns in a season. He doesn't hold that. So it's always up for debate, obviously, and it's not something that we'll ever really be able to prove. It's just saying someone's the greatest of all time at something isn't something that you can prove. just like in the NBA, I think Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time compared to LeBron. Now, of course, that's always a topic that's up for discussion, and I'm not a big basketball guy, but it's basically the same thing as trying to figure out who the greatest of all time in the NFL is. And it's not something that's ever actually going to be definitively solved. But you got my opinion here. Jerry Rice has, 10 records, which the lead that he has for them is at least 10 records, where the lead that he has for each record is just nothing short of amazing. Especially if you look at the career receiving yards, the differential is 23,000 basically to 16,000. That's unreal. And then Brady has from what I could find, he really has like 3 records of any real importance. He was in third place for 2 of the passer rating records, which Aaron Rodgers holds both of those. I just don't see, and notice how I didn't say anything about Super Bowl rings, because Super Bowl rings, I hate when people bring that up. Super Bowl rings doesn't define a player, because football is a team game. So just because Ray Lewis has 2 rings does not mean that he's not the greatest linebacker of all time, because someone else, Jack Lambert, has like 4. Like, you have to have a good offense, a good defense, a good special teams. Just ask fucking Blair Walsh. If you don't have a good kicker, if your special teams fucks up, just look at the Super Bowl. Look at the Saints Colts. Onside kick at the half changed everything. It's not one player doesn't decide a Super Bowl ring. So even though Jerry has quite a few rings, obviously Brady has 5, 6, whatever the number is. I don't like counting because it doesn't really matter in the scheme of things. But if you disagree, I'd like you to tell me why in the comments, because I'm not trying to be a Patriots hater here. I'm bringing facts. I've done my research. I just don't see how statistically or performance-wise there is a way that Jerry Rice is not the GOAT. I don't see how Tom Brady can be ranked as a better player than Jerry Rice. Plain and simple. That's all for today's video. If you guys have opinions, leave them in the comments. I'd love to see them. Maybe I'll bring them up in the next video, do some more research. I think the next video I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some more stats, come up with my list of the best current player at each NFL position. I don't know if I'll be able to do the offensive line. I'll have to find a website. I'd like to do it by statistics, so I'd have to find a website which has some advanced modern stats for the offensive linemen as far as run blocking proficiency, pass blocking proficiency, and such. So the best current player at each position and the best player of all time at each position. So I'll tell you that my pick for wide receiver and quarterback will almost definitely be Jerry Rice and Tom Brady. The only competition I'd give Brady is Aaron Rodgers, but I guess we'll see that video when it comes. So thanks for watching, everyone. Leave the comments. I'm very interested to see what you guys have to say. If you want me to... Actually, you know what? I don't know if you guys would be able to read this, but here's all of the research and records that I have written down. I know my handwriting sucks, but just so you guys know, I'm not making shit up. It's all right there, written down. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.